Andy Ruiz says that he wants the Deontay Wilder fight after the Luis Ortiz showdown, assuming he beats Luis Ortiz. Now, this is a fight that I've always wanted to see. I think it's a very interesting style matchup, particularly if Ruiz reverts back to his old style. And when I say old style, he hasn't changed that much, but under Eddie Reynoso, who he's actually not training with for this Luis Ortiz fight, he revealed that recently. But I've noticed, at least in his last fight against Chris Arreola, that he's leading off a lot more. He's not relying on countering as much. He's being more proactive rather than reactive. And I'm not sure whether that's actually a good thing, at least not against every opponent. I think that Ruiz was very effective when he was a front foot counterpuncher, when he wasn't actually leading off that much, when he was waiting for you to lead off, and then he was punishing you with extremely fast combinations. I think if you just quicken Ruiz's feet up a bit and allow him to apply more pressure more quickly, then he'll get more opportunities to counter guys. Now, it's not like he never would lead off under his previous trainers. No, he did lead off at times, but it was primarily counterpunching, or if not counterpunching, then trying to beat you to the punch. He would notice you starting to throw a shot, and then he would throw his own shot. But because he's got faster hands, he would gamble on landing his shot first. So that, I think, was very effective for Ruiz, and it was a style that was pretty unique in the heavyweight division. There are fighters in lower weight divisions who fight similar to that, but in the heavyweight division, you don't really see many guys that fight like that, on the front foot, throwing that many counters with the fast hands and all that kind of thing. So I always felt as though that style against Deontay Wilder is intriguing, particularly when Andy Ruiz uses his jab. If he can back Wilder up with a jab, and then, he's obviously got the left hand up to block Wilder's laser-like deadly right hand. Yeah, Ruiz has got his left hand up to block that. He can make it very interesting because when Wilder gets put under pressure, he becomes sloppy. Now, Wilder's never been the most polished fighter in any situation, but he's only really wild, right? Like his name. He's only really wild when he's finishing a guy or when he's under intense pressure. That's when he gets a bit wild and starts flailing a little bit. And with Andy Ruiz's style, his old style, maybe he can put him under that kind of pressure. So it's always been a fight that I wanted to see. However, at this stage of Deontay Wilder's career, I'm unsure whether his handlers would want to put him in there against Andy Ruiz. Now, if Ruiz beats Luis Ortiz in good fashion, let's say he beats him more convincingly than Deontay Wilder did. And by the way, I saw a recent video where Andy Ruiz was talking about his condition for this camp, and he says he's in much better shape. But then again, he would, right? That's what fighters always say. But he says that he was basically drained in the Luis Ortiz fight, having to lose a load of weight, and he wasn't as energetic and he wasn't as strong as normal. But for this fight, he says he feels far more energetic and far stronger. So I guess the proof is in the pudding. We'll find out when he faces Ortiz. But if he manages to come through that test with flying colors, then it will put pressure on Deontay Wilder, because people will say, hey, look, this Andy Ruiz guy who's in the same promotional stable as you, PBC, he dispatched of Luis Ortiz in more convincing fashion than you did. He had no issues whatsoever. So that might be something that works to Ruiz's advantage in terms of getting the fight. But based upon the way Deontay Wilder's been moved throughout his career, and also the stuff that his handler, Shelly Finkel, has been saying recently, I have my doubts about whether Wilder's people would actually put him in against Andy Ruiz anytime soon. And the reason I say that is because I think that Wilder and his people are really looking at the winner of Joshua Usyk. If not, they're looking at the vacant WBC belt if Tyson Fury decides to retire, but they can't really keep waiting on that. I guess it all depends. I think the whole of the heavyweight division, all of the networks, all of the fighters, all of the managers, they're all looking to see, and the promoters, of course, they're all looking to see what happens in this Joshua Usyk rematch. Because depending on how it goes, they might decide that that's the best road for them to take in terms of pursuing the winner of the fight. Let's say Usyk wins and wins in good style, will Tyson Fury actually come back for that? Perhaps he won't. And then the WBC belt may become vacant. And in that scenario, you might get to see Deontay Wilder actually fight Andy Ruiz for the WBC vacant if Ruiz has got sufficient ranking with that sanctioned body. But you know how it is. I mean, we've seen a recent story come out about the WBA, and it had to do with promoters or managers or whatever paying the WBA allegedly or incentivizing them to rank their fighters higher allegedly. So that kind of thing has been going on in boxing forever. I mean, this is just how it works. And I saw a video, actually, it was one of Teddy Atlas's podcasts, I think his most recent one, where he went into greater detail about how that works. And he talked about a time when he was in the UK and he was at some type of dinner, which was held by a promoter. He didn't name the promoter. And he said at this dinner, and it was, 5-star stuff, Michelin star stuff, right? At this dinner, they had all of the officials who were going to be working at the show the next evening or later on in the, if it was during the week, then it was the show on the weekend. All the officials were there and they were being pampered, basically. And he said he overheard certain conversations where officials were asking for tickets for their wives and girlfriends to come over, asking for an extra night stay in a hotel, asking for this and asking for that, presumably from the promoter. And the promoter was saying, yeah, we can work it out, this, that, and the other. So it's a bit, and Eddie Hearn basically admitted that this goes on a long time ago when people were talking about corruption in boxing. He basically admitted that this goes on. He said, is there times when judges and whatever are going to dinner with the promoter a couple nights before the event? Yeah, that happens. And so how can you say that that's not a bribe? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's not money under the table in a brown envelope in a smoky room, but it's paying for the expenses or going above and beyond to pay for the expenses of the judges. And the judges and the referee, whatever, understand that if they can endear themselves to this promoter, then they're going to be looked after like that for a very long time. They're going to be pampered, and every time they go to one of this promoter's show or work one of this promoter's shows, they can bring their family and their wife or their girlfriend. Do you know what I mean? It's like free holiday and free flights and all this kind of, it's like, whoa. Anyway, maybe I should do a separate video about that. But with regards to Ruiz against Deontay Wilder, again, all depends on the rankings under the WBC for the two fighters, if they could fight for the vacant belt. If Joshua manages to beat Alexander Usyk in the rematch, Tyson Fury might decide to come out of retirement, in which case that WBC belt wouldn't be vacant. Therefore, whoever's hoping to fight for the WBC belt, they're going to have to wait a lot longer. And of course, they're going to be, if it's Deontay Wilder, he's going to be hoping that Tyson Fury doesn't beat AJ, if AJ emerges as the winner in the Usyk rematch. He's going to hope that Tyson Fury doesn't beat AJ because he doesn't want to have to go see that gypsy in the ring again. He don't want no more work, surely. He don't want no more smoke with the Gypsy King. Because last time he got knocked out badly and he got a hell of a beating. So surely he's going to hope that somehow AJ could overcome the Gypsy King and he can go in there against AJ, because as intellectually challenged as Deontay Wilder is, I'm sure that he's learned that styles really do make fights. And maybe AJ's style is just a better style for him. Even if AJ pulled off an upset, because it would be an upset at this stage in the eyes of most people. If AJ pulled off an upset or two upsets, beat Usyk, then beat Fury, those are upsets. In that hypothetical scenario, despite AJ's success, I think Wilder would fancy his chances. And I think his team would probably fancy their chances because AJ has shown so much vulnerability in the past. So, yeah, anyway, long story short, I have my doubts about whether Andy Ruiz, Deontay Wilder will happen anytime soon. I think Wilder really needs to be forced into the situation. Either by, I don't know, let's say Andy Ruiz wins a title, or Deontay Wilder gets frozen out by whoever the other champion is. Do you know what I mean? Or let's say there's an undisputed champion and Wilder gets frozen out of that picture and he's forced to fight other contenders. And that's what I'm hoping for, to be honest with you, because we don't want to see a repeat of what we saw when Wilder was champion, where he was being protected, where he was, or his team at least, were putting out a lot of propaganda about other fighters and other promoters and just making it very difficult. We don't want to see a repeat of that. We want Deontay Wilder, or at least I want Deontay Wilder, to earn his shot this time. To go out there, beat Ruiz, and I want to say one other top contender. I'd like to see Wilder in there against the Ruiz, yes. I'd like to see him fight maybe Hrgovic, Michael Hunter, somebody like that. If he can get through two of those guys, then I'll be more than happy for him to step in there against an AJ, a Usyk, etc. Now look, even if he leapfrogs all the contenders and gets a fight, I'm still going to watch it. If he manages to fight for the title while leapfrogging all the contenders, I'm still going to watch it. But I will feel a little peeved, a little annoyed that he hasn't gone out there and actually fought some of the other contenders. It's not about a little group of fighters fighting each other over and over again and not allowing the contenders in the division to get a look in. That's not what it's about. And that's what it seemed was going on with Wilder and Fury. You know, they had their own little small clique of fighters that they'd fight, and they didn't want the other guys to get a look in. We don't need that in the heavyweight division, folks. So, and anyway, with Andy Ruiz and Deontay Wilder, yes, they're Al Hayman fighters, both PBC. But as I've said before, Wilder's people must be looking to cash him out at this point. And if they put him in against Andy Ruiz, that's not going to generate the kind of money that the Wilder-Joshua fight would generate or the Wilder-Usyk fight would generate. And they don't know when Wilder's going to lose again. How old is Deontay Wilder now? Like 36? So, yeah, they're looking to, even if it's a PBC guy, they're not looking to put him in there against a Ruiz, I don't think, anyway. At least Shelly Finkel. Maybe without Hayman, he might be more willing to put Wilder in there against the Ruiz because it's win-win for Al Hayman. It's not win-win for Shelly Finkel. Shelly Finkel doesn't represent Andy Ruiz. Yeah, Shelly Finkel doesn't represent any of the other PBC heavyweights. He only, as far as I'm aware, he only represents Deontay Wilder. And I remember Eddie Hearn a while ago saying that Wilder has 3 managers and they don't like each other. Well, I don't know how much they don't like each other, but I can certainly see a bit of a conflict of interest at times between them, particularly with Shelly Finkel or even JD's and Al Hayman. I can see how they might want slightly different things for Deontay in certain situations than Al Hayman might, because again, Al Hayman has lots of heavyweights, or when I say lots, he's got multiple heavyweights. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below about all the things I've talked about in this video, and particularly whether you think this Andy Ruiz-Deontay Wilder fight can happen anytime soon. Let's assume, and I know assumptions are the mother of all F-ups, right? But let's just hypothetically assume that Ruiz gets past Ortiz. How realistic do you think the Wilder fight is then? As in happening next. And if it were to happen next, and I'm sure your views could change depending on how Ruiz performs against Ortiz. But if it were to happen after that, who would you be picking? How would you see the fight going? Let me know in the comments below. If you're tired of the biased narratives and mass censorship on mainstream platforms, and you want to be part of a community of critical thinkers who love free speech just as much as you do, then come and join me on Patreon and access my weekly no-holds-barred, censorship-free podcast where we lift the lid on a wide variety of controversial topics. It's not mainstream friendly, it's not politically correct, but that's the whole point. We dare to stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. Just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called Hayman Hot Topics. you'll gain access to a minimum of 2 hours of exclusive content every single week, including podcasts, videos, interviews, live stream Q&As, as well as my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. Not to mention a vast back catalog of hundreds of hours of previous episodes. You can listen via the Patreon app with the option to download in high quality MP3. We've also got an Element group where you can come and chat and hang out with myself and other members. Unlike Discord, it has full end-to-end encryption, is decentralized, and is 100% censorship free. You can also send voice notes as well as much larger audio and video files than you can on Discord. So come and sign up on Patreon. There's no contract, there's no commitment, you can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a cup of coffee. So I'll see you over there. I'm out.